All right, welcome. Let's set the scene. A huge company is in the middle of a total crisis. We're talking negative headlines everywhere. The brand is getting hammered and its stock price is just plummeting. In that moment, that really intense pressure cooker, what is the right move?
I mean, it's the ultimate dilemma, right? Do you just duck your head and hope the whole storm just blows over? Or do you step up, get in the ring, and try to wrestle back control of the story? It's a massive decision, one that every company dreads, and honestly, a fascinating puzzle for anyone who wants to know how markets really tick.
So let's get right into it. This exact problem was the focus of a 2022 research paper that really dug into what companies actually do when the financial press decides to turn on them. And you know what? What they found is probably not what you'd expect. Instead of just going into hiding, the data shows that companies often go on the offense with a much more proactive strategy.
This idea, which actually goes all the way back to 1988, is really the heart of the whole thing. The theory is that when a storm of bad press hits, companies don't just sit there and take it. Nope, they release their own news, information that, hey, maybe it isn't incredible, but it's specifically not so bad when you put it next to the headlines.
So think about it like this. The media might be painting this really grim picture for the entire auto industry. So in response, a company like GM wouldn't just stay silent. They might come out and release their own more positive earnings guidance. It is a direct counterpunch to that negative story.
So here's the key takeaway. This isn't about making up good news out of thin air. It's all about strategic timing. Companies use what's called voluntary disclosures, things like earnings forecasts or press releases, to completely reframe the conversation and show a less negative, more detailed picture than what's screaming from the headlines.
So, why does this actually work? Why is speaking up, even with just kind of meh news, so much better than saying nothing at all? Well, to get that, we need to talk about a pretty fundamental concept in economics.
It all boils down to this one thing: information asymmetry. It's simple, really. The managers inside a company will always know more about the real health of the business than investors on the outside. And you know what? Investors know they don't know.
So, when all this bad news is swirling around and the company just goes completely quiet, investors don't just shrug it off. Their rational brain kicks in and fills that information vacuum with the absolute worst-case scenario. It's a phenomenon called the unraveling effect. Silence isn't neutral. To the market, it's basically a confirmation that things are even worse than they seem. And this explains the whole strategic game perfectly. Look, a company might have some mediocre news it was planning to just keep under wraps. But then, bam, a huge wave of terrible press hits. This drives investor expectations way down. So low, in fact, that suddenly the company's mediocre news doesn't seem so bad anymore. Actually, compared to the new doom and gloom outlook, it's basically good news.
Okay, that's a really compelling theory for sure. But does it actually hold up in the real world? Let's check out the evidence and see how the researchers put it all to the test. These researchers basically became data detectives. They went on this massive mission, digging through 15 years of corporate history. They collected every single management forecast, stock prices, and literally thousands and thousands of news articles, even using a powerful tool to score the positive or negative vibe of each one.
And the results? They were crystal clear. The more negative news a company got, the more likely it was to voluntarily put out an earnings forecast. The link was undeniable. And yeah, good news also led to companies talking, but bad news was a way more powerful motivator for them to speak up.
But, and this is super interesting, there was one big exception. During the financial crisis from 2007 to 2009, this whole effect got weaker. The study found that when there's a huge, system-wide crisis, bad news about one specific company just doesn't trigger that same response. It's like when everyone's ship is sinking, the same rules just don't apply.
Okay, so this brings us to the million-dollar question. We know companies do this, but does this whole fighting back with facts strategy actually work? Does it protect the company's bottom line?
First, let's just be clear about the problem we're trying to solve here. The real danger of a negative press cycle is that it can make a company's stock underpriced. All that means is its market value drops below what its actual financial health would suggest. The price starts reflecting fear, not just the facts on the ground.
So the big question is, could a well-timed bit of not-so-bad news actually help fix that? Could it pull the stock price back to where it should be?
And the data gives us a pretty clear answer: yes. The researchers dug into the stock returns and found that for companies getting hammered by bad press, putting out their own not-so-bad news significantly cut down on that underpricing.
the strategy was working.
Now let's be real. It wasn't a magic wand. The researchers are really careful to call it a partial success. It didn't make all the damage disappear, but it was a proven, effective tool for managers to perform some serious damage control and get back a little bit of command over their company's value.
Let's just zoom out for a second, because what this study really shows us is something much bigger than just a clever PR move. It's about the very nature of information in our financial markets.
What this research really proves is that the market isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's this dynamic, high-stakes game of information. You've got the media, investors, and company managers all in this constant tug-of-war, each one trying to shape the story. Bad press isn't just background noise. It fundamentally changes the game for a company, forcing its hand and demanding a response. It's a great reminder that how well our markets work depends completely on this flow of information from the outside in and from the inside out.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big thought. This research shows a very strategic, reactive way to handle information. But in our world today, with instant news and social media, where silence can be absolutely deafening, you have to wonder if a more proactive, maybe even radically transparent approach is becoming the only winning strategy for the long haul. And that's a question that leaders in every single boardroom are wrestling with right now.